silverback father saw his babies arguing. When he intervened, this happened. The air in the primate wing usually smelled of damp earth and sweet fruit, but that morning it smelled like a heavy electric tension. It was a rainy Tuesday afternoon, the kind of day Emily Donovan preferred, with the gray sky hanging low over the city and the rhythmic, hypnotic drumming of rain against the skylights of the Regenston Center, creating a heavy, atmospheric hush. Inside, the chaotic symphony of the zoo had fallen into a localized, jagged silence. Kobe, the troop's massive and soulful, gentle patriarch, was sitting in the shadows of the rock formation, his deep, amber eyes fixed on his two sons, Tatu and the slightly older Jomo. The two juveniles were engaged in a heated physical dispute over a piece of enrichment burlap. When the silverback father saw his babies arguing, he intervened. But what happened next was a display of biological authority and emotional complexity that left the keepers absolutely speechless and in floods of tears. What happens when the king of the troop decides that peace is more important than power? We expected a display of raw dominance when Kobe stood up today. Instead, we witnessed a cognitive intervention so profound it challenges everything we know about animal fatherhood and the unbreakable bonds of the great apes. Watch how this father's shocking method of mediation led to a discovery that left the entire zoo in tears. Before we dive into this incredible, heart-wrenching story of a father's love, please take a second to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to keep sharing these powerful stories of the animal kingdom. Ring that bell so you never miss an update. Emily had been a lead zookeeper for nearly 5 years, and she had seen just about everything. She knew the distinct personalities of every ape in her care better than she knew some of her own cousins. She knew that Kobe was a soulful giant who led with a jagged scar on his left palm, a mark of his resilience and a spirit of quiet patience. But today, the atmosphere shifted. The air grew heavy, charged with a static that made the hair on Emily's arms stand up, as the argument between the two brothers escalated from playful shoving to aggressive, high-pitched vocalizations. It started with a sound, a sharp, guttural scream from Tatu as Jomo attempted to wrestle the burlap away. Emily had been in the back enrichment room, preparing burlap sacks filled with wood wool and raisins, when the palpable tension reached a breaking point on the monitors. "James, Kobe is moving. He's heading right for the boys," Emily shouted into her radio, her voice steady but tight with a terrifying realization. James, the head keeper, responded from the observation deck, his voice a ragged whisper. "Protocol says we don't interfere in troop discipline, Emily, but Jomo is getting too rough. If Kobe doesn't stop this, someone's going to get hurt." But Kobe didn't charge. As the two juveniles tumbled through the straw, their screams echoing off the glass, a massive shadow fell over them. It was the patriarch. Kobe stood over them, his 400-pound frame casting a desolate refuge of shade over the fighting infants. "Dr. Williams, look at Kobe's remote biometrics." Emily noted, her eyes glued to the screen. "His heart rate is at 160 beats per minute. He's in atrial fibrillation from the stress of the conflict. His heart is quivering, but he's not using his strength to punish. He's doing something else." The controlled chaos of the intervention was in full swing. Kobe didn't strike either of his sons. He didn't roar. He simply sat down between them, reached out with his massive leathery hands, and gently took the burlap sack away. Then, he did the shocking thing. He didn't keep it for himself. He tore the burlap into 2 equal pieces and handed one to each of his sons. The next 10 minutes were a roller coaster of adrenaline and heartbreak. Tatu and Jomo, stunned by their father's solemn intelligence, immediately went quiet. But as they reached for their respective pieces of burlap, Kobe's body began to sway. The emotional strain of the mediation, combined with his underlying heart condition, was pushing his system to the limit. "He's going to collapse, James. His blood pressure is tanking." Emily cried out as she watched the Silverback's head drop. The strain of managing the troop's peace was literally breaking his heart. Suddenly, the green line on Kobe's monitor went flat, a long, agonizing beep that pierced the control room. "He's in cardiac arrest." Dr. Williams barked. "The electrical surge from the stress has caused a total failure. His heart has stopped." The incredible moment happened just as Kobe's knees buckled. Tatu and Jomo didn't run away in fear. They dropped their burlap and rushed to their father's side, pressing their tiny faces against his chest as if trying to restart his heart with their own warmth. The rescue team moved in, darting the other troop members to secure the area. The wing, usually quiet on a rainy Tuesday, became a hive of frantic activity as they rushed Kobe to the clinic. Emily stood by the glass, her fingers brushing the cold surface, watching as Dr. Williams applied the miniature paddles to the patriarch's massive chest. The air was thick with the smell of ozone and the sound of the rain, clear. Kobe's massive body arched. Nothing but the flat line's cruel whistle, clear. Another jolt. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the rain, clear. Finally, a faint beep returned. "He's back," Dr. Williams exhaled, wiping sweat from his forehead. The mediation nearly killed him. He put the peace of his children above his own life. It's a miracle his heart started again. The recovery was a testament to the unbreakable bonds of the troop. For the next 3 weeks, Kobe was kept in the medical bay under constant observation. Every day, Tatu and Jomo would sit at the clinic window. They would press their tiny palms against the glass, right over the jagged scar on their father's hand. They refused to play with the burlap sacks, leaving them untouched in the corner of the enclosure as if waiting for their father to return and give them permission. Emily had to hide Kobe's heart medications in tiny drops of sweetened formula, feeding him by hand as he slowly regained his strength, his soulful eyes always searching for his sons. The palpable tension of the clinic was replaced by a somber hope. Emily stayed late every night, watching the monitors, ensuring that the quivering in Kobe's heart didn't return. Exactly a month after the incident, the rain was falling again, a soft tapping on the skylights that felt like a melody of victory. It was time for Kobe to return to the troop. The desolate refuge of the clinic was gone. As he stepped back into the enclosure, he didn't have to assert his dominance. Tatu and Jomo rushed to him, but instead of arguing, they sat quietly at his feet. Emily realized then that she hadn't just witnessed a behavioral anomaly, she had witnessed the cognitive depth of a father who understood that the ultimate sacrifice wasn't made in battle, but in the preservation of family peace. As the sun finally began to break through the gray Tuesday clouds, casting long golden shadows across the straw, Emily watched the 3 of them, Kobe and his 2 miracle sons, huddled together. The chaotic symphony of the zoo was back in harmony, and the steady, healthy beat of Kobe's heart was the most beautiful sound Emily had ever heard. The shocking reality was that Kobe hadn't taught them a lesson through fear, he had taught them through empathy. He had gambled his life on the belief that they could learn to share, and the jagged scar on his palm was no longer a symbol of past pain, but a badge of a father's wisdom. In the weeks that followed, the story of Kobe's intervention became a part of the zoo's history. Visitors would stand at the glass, watching the soulful giant as he presided over a troop that was now remarkably peaceful. But for Emily, it was more personal. She saw the way Tatu and Jomo would now share their food without a single growl, their soulful eyes reflecting a respect that needed no words. The palpable tension of that rainy Tuesday had been replaced by a deep, abiding peace that seemed to radiate from Kobe himself. Kobe's health continued to improve, though he remained on a strict regimen of beta blockers to manage the lingering effects of the atrial fibrillation. Maya, the matriarch, became his constant companion during his recovery, often grooming his brow with a tenderness that brought tears to the eyes of the staff. The unbreakable bonds were now a tangible presence. Emily started a new program at the zoo, focusing on paternal mediation and the emotional labor of lead silverbacks. She used Kobe's recovery as the primary case study, proving that the heart of a silverback is as fragile as it is strong. The desolate refuge of the primate wing had been transformed into a sanctuary of emotional intelligence. As the sun set on another rainy Tuesday, Emily watched the family from the observation deck. She saw Kobe pull Tato into a warm embrace while Jomo rested his head on his father's massive arm. The unbreakable bond was a living reality that defied the laws of the wild. The chaotic symphony of the zoo continued, but for those who knew the story, the melody was forever changed by the father who chose to divide the burlap rather than divide the family. Every time the rain drummed on the glass, Emily was reminded of the thin line between conflict and peace, and the incredible strength of a father's heart. The bond between the two brothers, once so volatile, had transformed into a partnership. They were seen foraging together, often sharing the best pieces of bamboo without the need for Kobe to stand over them. The cognitive depth of the juveniles was on full display, as they seemed to have internalized the lesson their father nearly died to teach them. The palpable tension that usually preceded feeding time had vanished, replaced by a rhythmic, orderly distribution of resources that the keepers called the Kobe Protocol. It was a legacy of peace that would define the troop for generations. In the quiet hours before the zoo opened, Emily would sit with her coffee and watch the soulful, gentle patriarch as he sat in the golden morning light. She realized that her own understanding of nature had been deepened by that intervention. She no longer saw Kobe just as a biological entity, but as a teacher and a protector who understood the value of every single heartbeat. The desolate refuge of her own exhaustion was gone, replaced by a profound sense of purpose. She knew that as long as she was there, she would tell Kobe's story. The story of the silverback who saw his babies arguing and decided that love was the only answer. If you enjoyed this emotional journey of a father's sacrifice and the incredible wisdom of Kobe the patriarch, please don't forget to hit the like button. It really helps us share these stories of animal empathy and the miracles of nature with the world. And if you want to see more heartwarming rescues and animal reunions, make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Your support allows us to continue our mission of sharing the unbreakable bonds of the animal kingdom. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video as we explore the incredible depths of the wild world around us.